I think I'm going to, here's the plan. I'm going to shut down my antique booth. Yep, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that because at this point, I was reevaluating over the last couple days. Why had I allowed something that is a priority to me? Why did I not dedicate the time and everything to it, put in the effort into it? Not that it wasn't important, but why wasn't it a more important priority? And, because it's not just as simple as that, like, oh, I just didn't want to. It's not that. It's more than that. So what was going on with it that I wasn't putting in that effort? And, trying to really search myself for that answer. And I think here's what I've come up with. I've had my booth for the last roughly 2 years. And I like having it for, if nothing else, the larger pieces that I get that, I'm afraid will sit for a long time online because of the extravagant expense it would be to ship it. I'm not afraid to ship these items. It's just very expensive to ship these items. And so I liked having the booth for that. But, it's my very first antique booth that I ever had. And, I put a lot of effort into it for quite a while. And sales in it have just always been slow. They've just always been terribly slow. And I think a lot of it has to do with location. I really like the shop. I like the people that run the shop. I think that it's not a high traffic area, which kind of surprises me because it sits off the highway. But, I think that's what it comes down to. I got up there Monday to go look and see what all was gone after my Saturday and continued on to Sunday, 50% off on my booth. And, all the booths were really kind of doing a sale this past Saturday. And most everybody was doing like a 50 or 75% or something like that. And so I'm just kind of looking around. I'm like, wow, it's like literally nothing, I don't think was gone from my booth. And so I'm like, well, gosh, is it my stuff? Does my stuff just suck? Is that, maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's always a good question to ask yourself and do your best to be honest with yourself. Does what I'm selling just suck? Is it not desirable, And even if it's something you like, doesn't mean a majority of others will. So it's a good question to ask yourself. So I'm looking around and I'm thinking, okay, so is it my inventory? And I don't think it is. I was walking around the shop looking at other booths, and most of which still had their 50 and 75% off signs, and it looked like their booths hadn't been touched. So it wasn't just my booth that like got skipped over by everybody because all my stuff was crap. It was like nobody had much move, if anything, move. And so I don't know. I live in a rural area, and it's one of, 2 or 3 antique shops that are within a 20-minute drive from my house. And I feel like, at the other one that's about 2 minutes away from the one I'm at, I see traffic there consistently. But the one I'm at sits 2 more minutes further down the road, and there's not much else down there. It's the highway, and it keeps on going, and there's just not a whole lot. So I think I'm going to close down my booth because at this point I feel like I'm just paying a storage rental fee, where I would almost rather have these things that are expensive to ship listed online, where at least a lot of people have the opportunity to see it potentially. And if it sits for a while, okay, fine. It may take a little bit for the right buyer to come along, I guess, who's willing to pay the shipping for it, but I might as well store it here for free instead of having it just sit at the antique shop, not doing anything. So, I don't know. I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to close it down. And I think it was a hard thing for me to kind of come to terms with doing because it feels like a failure. Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong, on this and that? And what should I be doing different to make it better? And I think sometimes you just have to step back and look at all the other factors that are potentially affecting it because it doesn't all always rest with you. It's your decision to see things as well and alter your course based on what you see before your eyes. And what I see in front of me is an antique shop that I really like. And it's nice that it's close, at least close enough anyway, within a reasonable distance of my house, but it nonetheless just doesn't have a high traffic volume. It just doesn't. So I think it won't really matter too much how much effort I put into it. It's just not, it's never going to be a high traffic place. It's never going to be one that is going to see enough people go through it that things move at any sort of quick pace at all. And by quick, I mean within a month or two. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I just had to sit with it for a couple days and really think it over because financially, I just don't think it makes sense for me to continue paying a monthly booth rental fee when, I mean, it's been a year or more since I even broke even on my rental fee. Normally, I'm paying half or more of what it is. I usually sell maybe a handful of things out of the booth in a month. And like I said before, outside of the things that are like that Indian statue guy I've got there, there's only a couple things in my booth that are high dollar items. There's certainly nothing $1,000. I don't even have anything in my booth over $500. And so the vast majority, 98 to 99% of what's in my booth is $10 or less. I mean, I don't think it's my prices. I think I just had to sit and look at all these different things and try to figure out where is my time being invested, because I don't need to waste the energy, the time, and the resources in continuing a booth that I think in the back of my mind I've known for a long time just wasn't going to work out, and I didn't want to admit that to myself because I didn't want to have to admit that I failed. I couldn't make it work. And I think some of that maybe falls on me a little bit because it's, I haven't been putting in that effort, but I also have to think, why wasn't I putting in the effort? Because I don't do that with other things. I don't do that with, trying to create content. I don't do that with listing on eBay. I just took on accepting an exciting new thing with being a seller on Niknax, and, I'm getting ready to start posting on that here in just a little bit after I'm done with this. And so I'm like, what? I could be investing that time and energy and effort into pushing those further than having to worry about keeping up with a booth and just giving away money basically every month. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I told you guys. I told you guys I was going to show you the success, and I was going to show you the failure. And I don't know if this is truly a failure or if this is just me recognizing that this is not the correct path to keep walking. I don't see it as a win. I maybe see me finally admitting to myself that it needs a change as maybe a win. My ability to really step back and ask myself, like from deep within, to be honest with myself about why isn't this working? What not only am I doing wrong or could be doing better, but why have I not been putting in that effort? Why has it not been more of a priority? And I think it really just came down to my inability to be honest with me about the reality of the situation. And I think that's it. I really do. I think that's it. So, if you ever go like 45 minutes to an hour north of where I live, you can go into downtown like Kansas City, Missouri, and they have a whole like kind of an antique little district down there. And during at least the summer times, there's like food trucks and tons of people. I mean, a lot of people out walking around. And, there's just this like block or two worth of little antique shops. And they're old historic buildings. They're, the old brick buildings with the wood creaky floors and stuff. And I mean, you make a whole day of it. You go down there and spend the day walking just shop to shop to shop. And I'm telling you, there's so many people that you were just walking kind of in a line, just swagging along behind people, following them along up and down the stairs and in and out of the shops. And it's just the whole vibe and everything down there is so different. It would be amazing to have a booth down there. I think antique booths in general, I think when they're in an area like that, I think they can be not just successful, but I think they can be immensely successful. But when you're in one that's off in a kind of more obscure area, there's not really other shopping. It's certainly not other like antique shopping really nearby, much anyway. It's just not that same vibe. It doesn't draw in the crowds. When you're downtown, you're seeing people of all different age groups and culture, race, whatever. It's just an intermingling of just a ton of people walking around and having fun, and it's a good time. So I wish I lived a little bit closer. I mean, I don't, but I wish I had something similar to that closer within proximity of me, because I would love to have a booth in something like that. I think my advice for people to not do like what I did, because I've been paying like $90 a month, and maybe that's not a ton of money, but it is a lot of money. Sorry, it is. So I've been paying like $90 a month for like 2 years, and certainly came nowhere near breaking even. I've basically probably made $150 or $200, maybe a little more, but in the grand scheme of things, it ain't good. So my advice to people who've not had an antique booth yet and are thinking about it, unless you live in an area like downtown, like what I was talking about, you might want to go to the antique shop and ask them if they have like a super tiny space. There's a lot of them that will usually have like even a shelf you can rent. And this is what I'm thinking about doing with the shop right down the road from where I'm at, is renting like a shelf or a really, really, really tiny little booth for cheap and get a feel for the actual traffic in the store. And if it goes well from there, great. Get a bigger booth and a little bigger booth and whatever. Keep growing, right? But I think testing the waters a little bit is smarter to do. It'll wind up costing you less in the long run, and a hell of a lot easier to come in and collect your inventory and not have huge furniture and all this stuff to have to move out of it if you decide it's not working. There's not enough traffic. For whatever reason, it's not working. You just don't enjoy doing it. That's always a strong possibility too. You just flat out don't enjoy having to deal with it. Doesn't mean you don't enjoy going out antique shopping, but it's a very different aspect of it when you're one of the vendors going in. It's a lot to keep up with. And, ideally when you have a booth, you want to be there once or twice a week as much as possible to rearrange, bring up new inventory, just all the things that go into it. So I think antique booths are a great side hustle. I think they're a great way to make a little extra cash. I think it just depends on a case by case basis whether or not you want to do that, because I feel like there's maybe other ways to go around selling things locally than having an antique booth. So I think that's my plan. I'm going to shut it down. I think that's my plan. Yeah. Shut her down, boys. It's still nerve-wracking though.